Human, why do you keep going on so much about the need for each of us to have our own moral philosophy as a guiding compass? Well, so you can make better decisions. When you look up the neuroscience, there are basically two types of decision making. There's perceptual, as in it's nearly 3 o'clock, I have to go, or I'm looking for a seat in the theatre, there's a free one. And then there's the values-based decision-making, which is where most of us struggle, where we procrastinate, where we're too relative about decision A or decision B. And an example of values-based decisions which is fairly subjective, is I like brunettes over blondes. I like coffee over tea. And the decisions we try to make between these A's and B's, where there's no great demarcating line, but we can see the pros and cons of both, and we get hamstrung in the middle. We can spend time procrastinating between these two decisions, sometimes for minutes, other people for years and a lifetime. So where we tend to get hamstrung when there's two clear choices is where the two choices, there's not much separating them. Where you can see a lot of emotional value between the two, that's where it's hard, and you can spend a lot of wasted time trying to hold on to both and never choosing anything. And when you can't objectively discount one choice over the other, what tends to happen at the end, because probably of cognitive fatigue, is that emotional win and you'll just pick one because it makes you feel better. And a lot of times, it's not the good choice. Yeah, donuts feel better than healthy food, but we know the easy choice isn't always, in the long term especially, always the best for us. So how does sharpening and talking about and refining our virtues, ethics, and our moral philosophy, how does it help us? It helps us make better decisions. It's about one of the only things that can help us stop wasting time in the middle. Where there's a large difference between decision A and decision B, choices are made pretty easily. But what happens when the decision between A and B isn't very great? You can start to be overly relative between the two decisions in what's popular today, FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, I don't want to completely discard option B in favor of A, even though it's slightly winning, because there are good aspects to it. And particularly in relationships, that's what people tend to do when they either stay with a bad situation because they don't want to let go of a couple of good things, or you don't pick the better option because emotionally there are some obscure things you don't want to miss out on. So what's the best way to approach making a decision between A and B? As much as possible, you need to approach it as a binary choice and not a relative choice, because there's always good and bad things for each choice. Neuroscientists have shown, and you can look it up by Google searching, how our minds make choices and the differences between emotional and logical choices. It shows that we don't make choices on the value of A or the value of B. We finally tend to make a choice on the accumulated value of A compared to B. So it's the difference, it's the tipping point, it's the threshold between A and B. And what helps us in this decision is we rely on our memory to draw on the experience of A and everything we think about A compared to everything we think about B in terms of our memory. So when people tell you especially that you should give similar styled or types of relationship another shot, especially romantic ones with similar types of women who have similar types of mindset, if you draw on your memory of seeing the value in, let's say, A is romantic relationships, compared to B, which is a more pragmatic view of relationships, you can actually start to see what you value based on your experience. It's a much more rational point of view, regardless of what your emotions tell you, regardless of what your impulses want. A lot of time your impulses are nature, and nature just wants you to reproduce. It doesn't care afterwards if you're tossed into the scrap heap. Thank you for the baby's human with the crazy hot stripper. I've gotten what I need. What happens to you? Regret. So the process of choosing between A and B, I would say, is not a relative approach, not sort of saying, well, I can excuse them because they had a bad childhood, or I can see if I made a mistake, I'd want them to forgive me. No. what is the best choice between A and B? It's not a relative one, it should be a binary one, based on the value you ascribe between choice A and the value you ascribe to choice B. And lastly, what's the mindset you should try and lock into place as a mechanism to choose effectively time and time again between A and B? I would say when you're trying to make a choice between the values of A and the values of B is to adopt a third-person perspective. Now, I've talked about the importance of approaching life from a first-person perspective, as in, what are your values? But then on the outside world, where you need to choose, you're dealing with the external. And choosing between choices of the external, I would contend making a third person, not a first person, but a third person perspective choice between choice A and B based on your first person experience. Put another way, make the decision you'd give your best friend. So I'd say to myself, what is the best choice for human? Not what do I want, because my impulses and my feelings come into play, but objectively, as a third person that cares about myself, that cares about my friend, what's best for human here? Based on what I value. Do I value A more? A reasoned and adult value of A compared to B? If so, the choice is simple. Because it's very easy for us to make choices for other people, especially people we care about. It's very binary. Yeah, I don't care what you want. As a friend looking out for you, choice A is better. We should make our choices, I would contend, I humbly offer, by making our choices as a third person. But when we form our values beforehand, what will help us, whether we value A over B, that's first person. That's the work you do when you're not confronted externally by a choice. That's when you internalize your values and ethics and morals, and you know in and of yourself who you are and what you value. Then when the world presents you with choice A and B, you can make it based on your experience, your personal subjective experience, but you make the choice as third person, as what's best for human. What's best for my good friend that I value? So remember, your brain doesn't choose when you're presented externally with two options between the value of each specific thing. It chooses on the difference between A and B and what you value more. And thus the importance of knowing your values before these choices come up and demand you make a choice. Your moral philosophy is essential, gentlemen, because when you're given two choices in life in front of you externally, being lazy and adopting the live in the moment man is just going to be listening to your emotional impulses, and especially things like biology, your hormones, your addictions, and later on, you're going to feel more and more shamed, and it's going to wear you down more and more. Anyway, something to think about. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. I'd really be interested in what you think. Do you guys have tricks yourselves when presented with a decision that you can actually interrupt it with a frame of reference like this? Let me know what you think below. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. Share my videos on your social media. Link me around, that helps me out. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. And if you feel like donating, there are links below. Thanks to all you guys who donated this month. Really appreciate it. And let's finally say goodbye to this wretched 2020. I'll see you in the new year, guys. Bye. Have a good one. Happy New Year. Bye.